Right, can you guys hear me? Right, thank you. So yesterday we were talking about the project orientation, the fundamentals of the project orientation, the different phases where we will be going through the workshops, the development, the testing, the production, and then today we are supposed to talk about the methodologies, the best practices. Is it? Yeah. Right. Zafar says that he cannot hear my voice properly. It's breaking up. Is it the same with the rest, or can others please confirm? Okay. Zafar, is it clear to you, or how is it? It's clear for the rest. Zafar, I guess it's clear for everyone. Can you please check from your end? Or why don't you rejoin the meeting? All right. So, okay, Zafar, just let me know if you have any problem with the voice. Right. So yesterday we were talking about the fundamentals of projects, like the different phases of the project, where we will have different workshops. Yes, I'm just rewriting them. Sales call, sales presentation, technical presentation. Then once the technical presentation is done, then request for quotation. Then we will raise our queries and get the responses. Then request for proposal. And once the proposal is done, we understand the fundamentals, then we will do an SAPBW, and we can also do a pilot project here. And once the pilot project is done, then we can go and do a statement of work. 1 second. Okay. Just waiting for Zafar. Zafar, can you hear me properly now?
Yeah. Now I can hear you. I restarted my meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Rakesh, one quick question before you start. Just only a few seconds. Yeah. I did interview this morning, and it went very good. The only
Right,
one,
that's good.
only one question I tried to explain. So they were asking why we need the staging area. So I told that we need the stage area because we want to transform the data. We want to use platform transform data integrator. That's why we need the staging area like that. So
Okay.
this is the right answer or no?
No, I mean that is partially correct, but the exact reason why we need a staging area is we can directly take the data from the table, source table, do all required transformations and dump it into the target system, right? So there is no need for you to actually maintain the staging data. But to check the stages, like let us say if you are converting one plant information to another, and from there you are converting to another. So you are doing a three layered conversion. So if you want to drill down, if you take like 1000A from your source and it is converted to 9Z1234. So you are converting this 1000 to A to first 9Z000. Okay, and again this 9Z000 is replaced to 9Z1234. Right, so you're doing a two-stage conversion from this one to this one and from this one to this one, and then you are loading this. So if you are not staging these values, you'll directly load do 2 times conversion and load this. But if you want to do a reverse engineering, you want to drill down to your source record, you cannot do that because you cannot see this one, because this refers to this and this refers to this. Also, for reconciliation purpose, for performance, and for drill down from your source to target and from target to source, and check and validate the data at every stage. After every stage, we definitely need a staging area.
Okay, so actually they were asking, like for example, if they don't want to use the staging area, so they just want to pull the data from the source and want to dump into target. So do we need? So I say, yeah, we can do it, but if you want to use the data services features like data integrators as well as the platform transformation, then you need, because you want to transform the data, and without the staging you cannot go through. Is this the right answer or no?
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Okay, so
yeah, because if you are pulling the data from one source to target and you're doing a DAG dump, there's no need for you to have any staging area and stuff. But if you're doing a transformations in between, then definitely we will stage the data, because it goes through a process. Because the methodologies that we use for the project. So Bhargav, your question is this same for HANA and same for BI and BW. So the methodology is same for everything. It goes through extraction phase, then it goes through validation, and it goes through enrichment. So it goes through these 3 phases and gets loaded into the target system. So the methodology and the process remains the same. Okay, I'll talk about, we'll get back to that one.
Okay, so one more question. There's only one last. He was asking, like, if you are very big data source like 1 million records, right? And you want to push to the target table. So what do you think? What is the best way to process this type of data? So I think you were explaining about the data transfer, right? So I told if you use the data transfer, then it will split the sources. So I told this is the right one. For example, when we are dealing with
His
one.
question was different, Zafar. His question is, how do we handle the huge data volume sources?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you are trying to, do multiple operations on a source table which has huge volume within a single data flow, then you can split that into sub data flows using the data transfer transformation. But my guess that he is asking is, if you are dealing with a source table which is having huge volume, then what is the best mechanism in which you can load it into the target?
He was referencing for the Mara table. It's saying that, for example, if it has
Okay.
10,000, 15,000 record, right? So you want to push to the HANA. So you have created one table in a HANA catalog. So how do you proceed? So what is the best way? So I
Okay, I
said,
think we spoke about the ABAP data flow, right? The ABAP data
uh,
flow, apart from the normal data flow, if it is your SAP source and you are dealing with huge volume of data, we will
mhm.
go for an ABAP data flow.
Oh,
So I
okay.
told you the SAP best practices is, as per SAP, if it is more than 10,000 records, you have to go for an ABAP data flow. And as per the project, or as per my experience, if it is like
Yeah, I
more
think
than
I missed
50,000.
I missed that one. Actually, I know about that. You told me, but I don't know. I got a little confused.
Okay,
Mm.
so especially when you're dealing with SAP as a source, right? And if you are having less than 10,000 records, you can go for a normal data flow. And
Uh-huh.
if it is more than 10,000 records, or if it is somewhere around 50,000 records, you can go for an ABAP data flow. This improves the performance.
Oh, okay. Okay. The overall interview was very good. I gave about 35 minutes, and
Oh,
they were
that's
yeah,
pretty decent.
35 minutes. Yeah, yeah, decent. They said it will be a 40 minutes to 45 minutes, but it
Hmm.
it went about 35 minutes. There was
Yeah,
two
it's
guys.
pretty
One was a
decent.
senior, and both were senior guys.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rakesh.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So once we create the SOW, I'm just doing a quick recall on yesterday's topic so that we can proceed with the rest. So once we create the SOW, we will do the workshops and workshops on the landscape of the project and workshops on the modules, the number of objects, dependents, independents, and their flow. And once we decide on this, we will do a project kickstart. And once we do a project kickstart, we will get the functional consultant, create the functional design document, and then based on the functional design document, we will create the technical design document. And once we create the technical design document, we will kickstart the development. And uh, once we complete the development, we will do a unit testing here. Then once everything is fine, we will upload it into the central repository, and from there it goes to the QA system by the code promotion consultants. And once the code promotion consultant moves the code to QA system, they will notify the testers. The testers will do the testing in the QA system, and then if it is fine, then they will again notify the code promotion consultants to move it to the production. If it has any bugs, they will remap to the developers, and the developer will again fix the issue, do a unit testing, upload it to the central repository, and then from there the code promotion guys moves to the QA environment. Right, again this guy tester retests the job, And if it is fixed, then he will then ask the code promotion guys to move it into the production environment. And once they move the production environment, so there will be a data loader or loading consultant who will be loading the data into the target production system as per the order in which they have to be executed. And once everything is done, we will go to hypercare. Right, go live will be done once the data load is completed. Go live will be done, and once it is done, we'll go through the hypercare process. So now the next most important step is what methodology you are following for the project, because initially when we started with data services development projects from the version 3.0, there were no industry set standards. So every company has their own methodology, every company followed their own methodology, and SAP was closely monitoring all those projects. Since they are those first projects, SAP monitored them closely and picked all the best process from one company, and it gave it created a best methodology. So if you are working for a small and medium enterprises, so you can go with an AIO methodology, SAP AIO. So this methodology, the main concentration is you can have your source and targets are non-SAP systems or non-SAP projects, or in case you want to upload the data into a target SAP system, but you just want to upload one or two tables. So right, it's not a complete entire module wise load, or it's not an ad hoc load. So if you are just looking for uploading one or two tables, then through LSMW, then you can use the AIO methodology for this. So the basic thing that I'm trying to explain here is for small and medium enterprises, the general source and targets are non-SAP systems. So in case if you are using a non-SAP source and non-SAP target, you go for AIO methodology. And also, if in case you have a non-SAP non-SAP and SAP source and SAP target, and you are not uploading the entire module information, you are just writing the data to a couple of tables, like you go and insert some values into LFA1, you go and insert some values into MARA, only these tables, right? You are not doing a complete module level update. So in those cases, you can use the AIO methodology, right? The second one is best practices for data migration. So in this one, there are again versions 3.x, then 1.4x. There are different versions in which it is created. So BPDM stands for best practice for data migration. So this is used when you are working on large enterprise projects and your target system is an SAP system, and you are loading the data to the SAP system using your PyDoc mechanisms. So remember, if somebody asks you, did you follow the BPDM methodology and how did you load the data into the target system, then in BPDMs, it's only the IDOCs, right? So there are no LSMW, there are no database tables as your target tables. It is only SAP as your target, and you can have SAP and both SAP and non-SAP as your source, but right, and SAP as your target. Then in that case, you can use your BPDMs, best practices, RDSs, rapid deployment solution. So all these rapid deployment solutions or BPDM 3.x, 1.4x, RDS. So all these will have SAP as their target system, and the loading mechanism is through IDOCs. You can have sources as SAP and non-SAP sources, but your target is uh, SAP. So let us say if you are working on a big project and the target system is an Oracle system, then definitely you can go with the AIO methodology, because by following uh, by following any of these methodologies, it will help you to keep the track of changes that you do in the projects. Because if you just go and do it by yourself, then let us say I have 10 to 15 people working in my project, and there is no project development methodology or project development standard, then everybody will go and do their own approach. And ultimately, when I consolidate all these jobs, it won't look like uh, one person has done that, or it won't look decent, right? So for that, we maintain the project development standards. So that's what I was trying to explain from the day one. We will follow the naming convention, and we will learn the things with the name, so that once you get into the project, it will be pretty easy for you to understand this. So first, let us look at the AIO methodology. So AIO stands for all-in-one methodology. That is SAP methodology. And I've already shared these documents with you. I'm just opening them. Yeah. Right. So, Bhargava, I've gone through your document. So, I'm talking about a little more volume of information on these documents that I've opened right now. So, still, if you want me to walk you through them, please let me know. I'll walk you through them once we are done with this one. Okay. Right. So the first methodology that we will be looking at is AIO methodology. AIO stands for all-in-one. And here, if you look at this, the approach for AIO is extraction, then deduplication, then we have pre-val, preload validation, enrichment, post-val, and then finally a load structure. So this will be the process that we'll be following. And here in this kind of methodology, we especially go for a small and medium enterprises. So we need to do extracting and staging, and also the lookup creation. So we'll have two conditionals here. The first one is extraction, the second one is lookup, and third one is enrichment. So in condition extraction, so let us say this is a conditional extraction and conditional lookup, and the third one is conditional enrichment. Right, so here in condition extraction, I will extract all my source table and stage them. Then I will extract all my lookup tables and create them. Okay, the reason why I'm calling them as create them is like your lookup tables has to be made permanent so that they can be used. So I'm just creating the lookup tables here. Rest, you generally extract them and stage them in your staging area. Right now, here, once we get into this, here we extracted all the data and state that here we will do a scoping on the data. We pick the right data that is required for this project, and as we assume on this project, we have our sources as SAP, non-SAP, Excels, right? So we definitely foresee, the space for the duplicate records. Especially we are consolidating data from different sources like different flat files and database tables. So we will process the data to avoid the duplicates. The only place where we will not do a deduplication is when our source is an SAP system, because SAP systems will not allow the duplicate record. So if you are saying this in an interview and somebody contradicts, right? So why SAP will not allow duplicate records? Why can't database will also not allow a duplicate record? If somebody says like that, another answer that we have to give is I can create a flat structure in my database table, right? Insert all bad data into that one, and then I can go and make a particular column as a primary key. Now the data is bad, still the column is a primary key, right? But on SAP system it is not like that. So if you are looking at an SAP system, that is a pre-built table and predefined structure and predefined primary keys. You cannot push bad data into that one. Whereas in Oracle you can go and create your table, then push the bad data and then update the columns to be primary key columns or something like that. You can do that, but on SAP end you cannot have bad data in your table. So that's the reason why we go through the deduplication process. And this is a preload validation. We call pre-val. It's a preload validation. So here in the preload validation, we perform 3 validations: mandatory, format, and lookup validations. And we will capture the valid and invalid data. So preload validation is done on, so once my extraction is done, my target table is my map table, and I take that map table as an input and I perform deduplication, and I get duplicates and unique records. So I take unique as an input here and I perform preload validation, and I get valid and invalid tables as an output, and I will take valid as an input here, and I apply the business rule. So when I perform the enrichment on the data, when I do the scrubbing on the data, so the data gets changed, right? I can create new output columns and do calculations there. I can do calculations on the existing columns. So once I perform this enrichment, so the values tend to change. So here I'll get my table output as enriched, and I'll take that enriched table as an input, and I'll perform the post-load validation, where again I will get a val or inval records. So when I say preload and post-load validations, so especially when I'm doing business rules, when I'm doing a conversion on the data, right, when I'm creating new output columns and performing calculations on that. So I also need to cross-check that the converted data or the new columns and their data is as per the target system standards. So we will repeat the same validation process and call it as post-load validation, which will give you the output tables as val and inval. So we will take the valid table as an input here and process that and create the load structure file or load the data into the target system. If your target is SAP, you create a structured flat file and read that using LSMW, and if your target system is a database, then you directly load that into the target system. So this is the process that we follow in SAP all-in-one methodology. So let me open that document for you. So this is one project actually that we did, and this is the project documentation. So this is the method. I just did some updates on that one for flat files and non-SAP sources. Three major areas are there in AIO methodology. One is extraction, lookup, and enrichment. So extraction, I extract and stage all my source tables. This is a place where you extract the data from your flat files, non-SAP sources, and load them into the BODS staging area. Then lookup is a place where you extract the data from your lookup tables or files and load them into the staging area, make them permanent, and create your lookup environment ready. Yeah, Sandeep, this document and other project document I can't share because they are like the current projects for the company, so I can share anything other than this. Sorry for that. Right, so the next one is an enrichment phase. Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. So the next one is the enrichment phase. This is a place where we'll be performing mapping, which is nothing but our extraction, where I do my scoping activity, then deduplication, source validation, which is my preload validation. Then the next one is script deletion. I'll tell about it. Then target validation. Again, after every validation, you'll have a script deletion. I'll just show it to you. Then enrichment, and the final is a load data flow or an LSMW data flow. So the naming standards for the AIO methodology. Project name starts with PRJ underscore, right? So if you are starting a project, right? So the project name will be PRJ underscore, the methodology that you are following, the customer name, and it will be like this. So again, your jobs will be job underscore, the methodology that you are following, and then the customer name, and then the module that you are working in, right? So these are the standards that we follow. Again, it implies to the same to the data flow. So if you have a sub module, right? So if it is finance and accounts payable, right? You can have it like this. And if you are working on a data flow, so df underscore AIO test underscore mapping, then validation enrichment. But just keep in mind, you better use shortcuts, right? So your name of your tables, data flows, jobs, workflows, project, nothing should exceed more than 30 characters length, so that you can be at ease when you want to transform your job from one environment to another. And let's say the first one is supported by SQL and the second one is supported by Oracle, then in that case there is no need for you to go and change the table names and their length. So project name starts with PRJ underscore the client name, then job name, job underscore AIO, then the client name, the module, and the object in that module. And global variables $G or $GV, workflow, WF underscore, again the same process, project name, module name, and object name. So when I say the project name, it can be a project specific name or the client name, right? Then initialization script, you can use script initialize or script init, deletion script, script delete or script del. Then conditionals, use con underscore extract, con underscore lookup, and con underscore enrich. And then the data flow names, right? So df AIO methodology, the project name, module name, object name, and the stage name. So at which stage of the project you are in. You are either doing an extraction, then use the data flow name as df AIO, customer underscore underscore or fi underscore AR underscore ext, right? When you are in an extracting stage. When you are doing a mapping stage, you do underscore map underscore dedo, right? Validations. So you can use, is that a source validation or a target validation? Preload val pre-val and post-val. And you can also give the file names as ff underscore, the methodology, module name, object, and is that a source or a target flat file. So these are like something that I was trying to teach from the day one, those standards. So when you are creating a flat file, you define if it is your source or if it is your target, so that you won't find it like a new thing when you get into your project. And by default, we'll be creating them with the project standards. So next one, the table names, right? Table names will be the customer name, module name, object name, table, and which stage they are in. Is that an extract, map, dedupe, validation? Then lookups, they start with lookup underscore the table name. So LKP underscore material master, or LKP underscore plans, LKP underscore unit of measure, right? Cross-reference. So I told you the difference between the cross-reference and lookups, right? So cross-reference table, we cross-refer our data, cross-check our source data with that, and if it is there, it is a valid entry. If it is not there, it is an invalid entry, right? But if in lookup, so we will have the legacy value and the target value. So we'll compare our source data with the legacy value and pull the target value. So that is what we do in a lookup tables. So this is a small difference, but you can use lookup table as a cross-reference table and perform the activities in the projects. Then validation transformations, then validation mandatory lookup and format. So this is the naming convention that you have to give. Then whenever you are using a merge underscore valid and merge underscore invalid, whenever you use a query transformation, use qt underscore the purpose if it is an extraction, staging, lookup, or whatever it is. Then data store names. ds underscore source is our source system. ds underscore stage is our staging. Stage initial, there are two types of stages. So if you are creating some test tables, dummy tables, and you are dumping the data in one temporary staging part, which you don't want to show it to the customer, so we will put that in stage init. And the solidified data, the converted data, or the actual internal storage data will be put in stage, right? We will also have a separate staging area for lookup environment, where we'll go and create the lookup tables, and this is DSSAP, your target data store, right? And this is how we follow this. So the hierarchy: project, job, script initialization, condition extracting, data flow for extracting the source data, conditional for lookup, data flow for lookup extraction, conditional for enrichment, which will have data flow for mapping, data flow for deduplication, data flow for source validation, script deletion, enrichment, target validation, script deletion, and your load data flow. It can be your LSMW or it can be anything. So, right, so this is my job. So first I created a project, and under the project I created my job. So script initialization, where I created all the global variables and declared them in the script. Then I have three conditions here: condition extraction, condition lookup, and condition enrichment. And these are my data stores. So I did not want more data stores here. Neither I had any lookup tables in this project, so I did not create a data store for lookup. I created data stores to connect to your source, connect to your target. I mean, in this case, we are loading the data. In this project, actually, we are loading the data into a target SAP system. So we created a flat file, and LSMW guys will pick that flat file and write it into the target system. So no DSSAP data store. So generally, you can have two another data stores. One is your DSSAP and DS underscore lookup. So these are the three conditionals: condition extract, lookup, and enrichment. So if you first go to the job, so this is my job here. Look at the naming convention: job, AI, O, SR, power, PM, RPT, equipment. So that is, in SR power, that is the client name. You have PM and report equipment. So that is the submodule level. So this is a non-SAP standard, so AFO methodology. So don't expect material master, customer master, finance, accounts payable, accounts receivable here. So this is a custom thing. So first we created a workflow, and there at the job level we created the global variables: extract, lookup, enrich, then source path and target path. So these are the global variables that we created. And after that we created a workflow, and if you look at the workflow, it has the naming convention: workflow underscore client name, report equipment. Then the first one within that workflow, the first one is a script initialization. So if you open the script, so remember the hashtags and bots. So hashtag, if you use a hashtag, it will convert that particular line to a comment. So condition for extraction, condition for lookup, and condition for enrichment, and then a source path and target path. So we just give the comments here so that the people can easily understand looking at this. So if I don't give the comments, if you open this, so you have to guess $G underscore ext for the extraction conditional, this one for lookup. But if somebody gives the documentation, right, along with the code, so that will be pretty good. Right, then your inbound and outbound directory paths are given. The next one is condition extraction, and within this condition extraction I'm using the global variable. And if you look at this data flow, df the process name, and then extract. So this is my extraction data flow where I'm extracting all my source data. Then I'm extracting the data from a flat file and doing a staging here. Then go to the conditional lookup. So in that case only I had one flat file as my source. So then lookup, so we don't have any lookup information in this project, so but still in future if the customer wants to have a lookup, so there's no need for breaking the code. So I already gave that provision. So you can have something in that conditional, or I can just leave it blank, and in the script initialization you can set this to no, right? So 1 and 0, y and n, these are the common standards that are used here. So you can keep this 1 here, and the script you can keep this 0 till you have this conditional lookup in place. So the next one is conditional enrichment, the third conditional. And if you look at this conditional enrichment, within that I have all my this one, the actual data flows. So if you look at the first one is your map, the second one is your deduplication, the third one is your source validation, script deletion, enrichment, target validation, script deletion, and final load data flow. So this is the process. First you will have your mapping, deduplication, pre-val, deletion, then enrichment, post-val, script deletion, and then finally your load structure. So first let us go and look at the first data flow, which is your map data flow. So you here there are two activities that you do. One is you extract the stage data and load it into the map. So you select the scope data here. You will say, okay, this is my scope, plant 1000 is not my scope, plant 2000 is not my scope, or regions with null is not my scope. So you apply all these business rules on the data. Sorry, it's not the business rules, but you apply the filters on the data and you pick whatever the data that is required to be loaded into your target table. Right? You apply and apart from the data, you also sometimes go and do a conversion on the metadata here. So you convert the metadata as per the target required format. So this is the mapping your source to target. You take the scope data, you also do a conversion on your metadata. So once your stage table is extracted and loaded into the map table, the next data flow, deduplication, you will use the map table as an input and you will process that through a deduplication process. So here what we are doing as a deduplication process, it's very simple. What I will do is I'll pull all the columns into my group by. So what are the columns that I'm going to put in my schema out? I'll put everything into group by, and in schema out I'll create a new output column, and I'll create that as, I'll call that as row number and populate that with generate row number. So this is what I will be doing. So if I open a query transformation, so this is an old process in which we identify the duplicates. So on a theoretical part, we do a group by on the entire data, and if there are duplicates, they get bundled up. So we will use the row number count for that. So what the row number will do, whenever there is a duplicate, the row number is incremented by 1. So in this document, if you look at this, non-duplicates, the condition is where row number is equal to 1, and for duplicates, where the row number is greater than 1. So I push the data into two tables. One is your dupes and the second one is your uniques. So just let me take you to so no query transformations. That's right. Alright, so we have the query transformation here. So what I'll do, I'll take all the columns that what are the columns that I'm pushing into my schema out, and I will drag and drop them from schema into my group by. And here I'll create a new output column called as row number. Keep that as an integer, and here I'll populate that with a generate row number function. So whenever I do a group by on the entire data here, so whenever there is a duplicate, the row number count will increment. So if the row number is equal to 1, then it is a distinct record. If the row number is greater than 1, then it is a duplicate record. So we stage that into two different tables. So Zafar, the question that he asked, so these are the different staging tables, intermediate staging tables that we create in the project.
Okay.
Okay, so we create duplicates and non-duplicates. So these staging tables, so whenever we do out of scope data, right? Whenever we capture the out of scope data, whenever we capture the non-duplicates, sorry, the duplicates, and whenever we capture the invalid records, we give all these data sets to the data owners and ask them to validate and give us a sign off on that. Because as a data migration consultant, we are responsible for each and every record that we pull from the source till we load them into the target. So let us say if I am extracting 10,000 records from my source and I load only 7,000 into my target, then I am responsible to answer on the remaining 3,000. So I will show my 3,000, 1,000 as my non-duplicate duplicates, 1,000 as my out of scope, and another 1,000 as my invalid record. So that gives a count match. How many extracted I extracted and how many I loaded into my target.
Okay, Rakesh, so how we can handle the primary key constraints? Like, for example, if you have, for example, we are loading from MRC table to SAP HANA, right? And if there is any duplicate, so how we can handle these things, primary key constraints?
So there are two ways. Yeah, we spoke about it. There are two ways. One is, if you know that you have a duplicate and you don't want that to flow to your target table, you can select distinct rows. Okay. And the second one, you want the data to be flown into the target table, so you go and uncheck the primary key. It will allow the duplicates into the target table. and once you load that into the HANA system, there you can go and do a conversion. So database, you always have a point where you can create a flat structure, and on top of it you go and define a primary key once the data is loaded. But SAP will not allow that, so you can do these things.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so this is a one, and once we create this non-duplicates and duplicate tables, so we'll take the non-duplicate table as an input, and we perform three types of validations. One is your mandatory, lookup and format, so merge valid and merge invalid, QT underscore the purpose of this query transformation, and the output is valid table and invalid table. So next, script deletion. So I think I spoke about this, why we need the script deletion. So script deletion, if in case, so let me take you to Excel here. So now I'm performing a validation, right? So I'm doing a mandatory, then I'm doing a format, and then I'm trying to do a lookup. So record one from your source table is passed here, but it is failed in this too, so it is invalid here. So an invalid record cannot be in a valid table. So that is the main reason why we have a script deletion. So a record that is present in an invalid table should not be present in a valid table. So what we do, between our source table and the transformation, validation transformation, we use a query transformation. Just give me a second. So we will perform the three types of validation. So here we will add a query transformation between our source table and the validations. We will use a query transformation, and in this query transformation we'll create a new output column called as a row ID. Right, in that row ID we'll populate that with a generate row number. The reason why we do this is, if a record is passed here, it goes here and it has the row ID 1, and if the same record fails and it goes and it will go to the invalid table, it will have a row ID 1. So if it also fails here, again it goes to the invalid and it will have another row ID 1. So if you look at this deletion script, so it has a subquery in that one. So select distinct row ID from invalid table. So it will go and look for all the distinct row IDs. It was like 1, and from there it will go and delete from the valid table where row ID in, select distinct row ID from the invalid table. So first it will go and pick all the distinct row IDs, and if this row ID is present in the valid table, then it will go and delete. So with this we will achieve the thing that we will not have any records in common between the valid and invalid table. So that is our standard.
Rakesh, one quick question. So when you were explaining about the history preserving option, map operation, so you were explaining that we have a data source, then we have table comparison and the history preserving, right? So at that stage, it will help to handle the primary key constraint, because it automatically increment 1, right? So we cannot use that one, like is a different thing?
This like, one we don't maintain a primary key when we are maintaining duplicates, right? So history preserving actually, history preserving actually, have an extra column inserted. So in those cases, definitely no, we will not maintain the primary key constraint there.
So it will not help to handle the primary key constraint, like history preserving?
Because history preserving itself says that you are trying to maintain a history of the same record, which means we are deliberately maintaining a duplicate. So on the customer ID, if you go and make it as a primary key, then it will not accept, because it is having a duplicate. It is having an old record and a new record. So in that case, you can do a combination. So you can go and do a combination primary key. One is on the customer ID, and second one is on the column.
Actually, I'm not able to explain what I'm asking. For example, in a source table, we have run record, which is 10 number, right? So the raw ID is 10, and in the target table, we have already loaded in target 10 record, 10 ID, right? So for example, if we run this batch, right, job again, so it will not give us error, like a primary key is already exists in the target table. So how we can...
No. Because we are doing a table comparison here. The source data set is compared with the target data set, and only the changed records, inserts, updates, and deletes are pushed to the next level.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
If the record is already there, right, and if a record is 10 is there and 10 is present here, then it will check if there is any change in the data at any column level. If it is, then if it is a change in the column level, then it will go and update tag to that one, where it gets pushed onto this. So if a same record is there and there are no changes on that one, it will ignore that record. Only inserts, updates, and deletes.
That's called handling the delta, right? For example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. I think I'm a little confused about this one, because how we can handle like a, for example, if we don't use this table comparison history provisioning, so we always get the primary key constraint problem, right? So we have to use something, right?
See, primary key constraint is something that you will get, especially you are trying to load a duplicate record into a table which is marked as a primary key. One thing, if you want to allow duplicates, you go and uncheck the primary key, or if you want to cut off the duplicates, you select the distinct. So these are two ways in which you can handle the duplicates. Third thing is, you want to do an automated delta, make sure that, even if the same source data is repeated in the source table and it is present in the target table, unless and until there is a change, insert, update, and delete on the data, do not take it forward, use a table comparison. So if you don't want to use a table comparison or history preserving, and let us say you want to maintain a duplicate record, then definitely you have to uncheck the primary key. If not, you will get the primary key constraint error. You have to go and uncheck this one here.
Okay, I got it. Okay. I think there was another option you were showing somewhere when we can delete before load, right? So we can use that one if it's small table, right?
Yeah, if it is small table, you can go and use that option.
But if it's very big, like it has more than 10, 15,000 record, then we used to go with this procedure, right? Is better. Okay. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so back to the methodology. So this is why we use the script deletion. So where we delete the invalid records and the records that are common in both valid and invalid table based on the row ID. And then you will take it to the enrichment phase, where you will have a query enrich, and this is where you actually apply the business rules. So you will not apply the business rules anywhere else, because let us say if you have to do a correction on a particular business rule and you are not sure in which data flow you applied it, you have to drill down through each and every data flow to understand where exactly you applied this one. So this is one place where you can go and do apply the business rules, and you can have, if you have like complex business rules which you feel that you cannot apply in one single query transformation, you can add one more query transformation, and if you think adding more query transformations degrades the performance, you can have multiple data flows like enrich 1, enrich 2, enrich 3, and so on, and do the activity in data flow by data flow. You apply the business rules here, and once it is done, again it goes through the target validation, where again you will perform mandatory format and lookup validations, create valid and invalid tables. Then you take the valid table as an input. Again, you'll have a script deletion, the same process. Then you'll have the valid table as an input, and with that valid table, you will create a flat file. And also, if you want to load the data directly into your database table, you will go and create that, or you create a flat file where this flat file will be picked by the SAPBW program or Oracle RMS program, and it will be loaded into the target system. So this is our AIO methodology, and this is an entire job screenshots at different stages on the AIO methodology. And I think we are running out of time. We could not complete the other approaches. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I will answer on AIO, and then I will walk you through the BPDMs. And tomorrow we will look at the BPDMs continuation, and then rapid deployment solutions. I mean, that's just a naming convention given for the latest version with some add-ons to it. So I'll walk you through those two documents. I have them open here. One is your BPDM best practices for data migration, and there is one more document that I've downloaded. Yep, this one. This is an RDS document, rapid deployment solution, and I'll walk you through these two, and then we will go for my current project, global employee data validation, and I'll show you what else we did there. That definitely will have some points that we still have to look on data services. Some innovative combinations will be there, so I'll walk you through that one as well. So before that, please let me know if you have any questions on AIO. So any questions on the methodology? The methodology is straight, so you'll use it for small and medium enterprises. It goes through this process: extraction, lookup, then enrichment. And enrichment, you'll have mapping, deduplication, pre-val, enrichment, post-val, and the load structure. So this is our all-in-one methodology, the first project data migration standards given by SAP. Okay, so right, if you have any questions, you can write to me. I guess you already have my email address. Right, the second methodology that we'll be talking about is the BPDMs, which is best practices for data migration. So in these cases, your source can be your SAP and non-SAP systems, but your target is definitely your SAP system. Because using this methodology, we load the data. The mechanism that we use here to load the data is through the iDocs, right? So this is our BPDMs, best practices for data migration. Right, you can have SAP and non-SAP systems as your source, but your target system is an SAP, and you load the data using iDocs. So the main advantage when you will go for a BPDM is BPDM always gives you the process, and also it gives you the pre-built template jobs. So BPDM gives you a pre-built template job. So there's no need for you to go and build your data services job. All you have to do is you just go and get the job that you want to work on, the template job, modify that, and you can go ahead and run the job and complete your development activity. So it not only gives you the pre-built template jobs, it will give you the design guide, then it will give you the mappings, mapping sheets, it will give you the lookup creations and everything. So it gives you an end-to-end process, right? So that's why I mentioned it as process. So this is our BPDM. So let us first go and look at what BPDM is teaching us, because there's a lot of things that we learn from there. And once we understand that, then we can go and look at the template jobs and how we can go and customize the template jobs, right? So now let us go and look at this one. So once you download this, even before this, I'll walk you through the SAP notes that I shared with you. So this is my SAP note. So this is where I start, right, for a best practices data migration project. So this is where I start, and now this is deliver and install the SAP best practices for data migration solution. This is 1.3.2 version 1.3x based on the SAP Business Objects Data Services version 3.2. So this is the notes for 3.2, and for latest we have a notes called 1.4x. And the other terms, data migration packages, best practices, business objects, data integrator. So what are the different other terms that are used in this one? And then the reason and prerequisites. So what are prerequisites for us to go ahead and do this one? So automatic installation setup required for software configuration. So this best practices document even gives you a data services installation procedure, automated installation procedure. Then mapping templates in Excel, which maps your source to target tables. Then lookup templates for legacy to SAP value mapping. So, I just told about the lookup tables. So in lookup tables, we have to create them so that we pick the unique records from your source, unique records from your target, and do a mapping. So even that process is automated here, right? So you can do that using your lookup templates. Then migration services, data services, ATL files. ATL files are nothing but when you take a backup of your job, it will be your ATL file. Then reporting, documentation package that includes quick guide, business process, and all these things. So these are the pre-built jobs that SAP has given as a part of this document. So accounts receivable, accounts payable, classes, cost element, then customer master, functional locations, inspection methods, then sales orders, SD pricing, vendor master, work center, material master. So if we look at this one, all the 47 standard IDOCs of SAP, the pre-built template jobs are provided. So these BPDMs and RDSs, they provide you a pre-built template job on all the standard IDOCs that you have on SAP system. There are 47 standard IDOCs, right? They're like delivered with the system. If something is created by us, we call them as Z IDOCs. That starts with Z. SAP follows this naming convention. If everything is delivered by the system, they will be started with 0. And if something you created, they will be starting with Z, a differentiator. So standard IDOCs, all these modules are there in SAP system. So they created the best practices. So I had an extra privilege to work extra mile on this best practices with my previous company. So SAP gave only 47 template jobs, but we did a quick analysis on 40 projects on data migration, and we picked all the Z IDOCs, custom IDOCs that are possibly used, right? And we created the template jobs, ready to use template jobs, and as a part of this project, we created these template jobs and we displayed that in Sapphire that happens in US, where we go and promote our skills to SAP, saying that this is what we do and all. And if SAP likes our products, they'll purchase them and give us the royalty, which happened for us. So, we created these template jobs for 300 plus IDOCs, right? So we picked each and every IDOC that is there on SAP system, and categorize them as high priority, which are mostly used in the projects that we analyze, and the second one as low priority, where the rest of the IDOCs are there, where we pick them and utilize them. So we created some 300 plus IDOC template jobs. So that's the reason why I kind of like these methodologies. They are really good and standards, and that's why I got into this note that teaching itself with the project standards will help us to acquire the standards. Now, as a part of this one, you will download all these RAR files. So this is from where you will download. This is the path from where you will go and download. So you need to have a username and password. Once you download all these things, they will be present in your download location. So I actually had them here. So AIO BPDM IDOC1, IDOC2, lookup, and I have one more thing called as data store. So I downloaded all of them and kept them in place. Right, and once you're done with the download, so this is the header data and the version and all these things. What are the different jobs that they gave, and what are the different files that you can download from here. So they gave the entire list that is available in that path. So this is my SAP notes, and this SAP notes refers to my quick guide document, which I can download from that location, and this is my quick guide document. So this quick guide document will guide you right from setting up the environment, and this is one kind of a foundation for the training that I designed, so that we will teach from creating an environment, creating local repository, creating central repository, so that people will easily understand that. So rather than just jumping into the tool and I tell them that okay, this is how we go and create the transformation, so it won't be that good enough. So I should talk about the history, then I should talk about the environment setup, then I'll tell how to utilize that environment. So that's the reason why I designed my course content like that, and this is kind of a foundation stone for me. So getting started. So this is the notes, and once you download all these things from the SAP note, you have to copy the entire stuff into your C:\migration folder. So I kept it in my D drive migration, and this is the entire stuff I can download from that notes. So everything downloaded and extracted. This is my migration folder, and once I put that in migration folder, I have these RAR files, and I have to extract all of them and keep them in place. Right, next one is installation of backend database. So we don't need to do that because it is already there. But if you go through these BPDMs, so on a bare server where there is nothing other than an operating system, you can install data services, you can install everything. This gives you those files too. So you need to download those software from the service marketplace, keep the license keys ready, and you need to trigger these exes which will go and install the Microsoft server. So once you can, this is optional, not required. So once the Microsoft server is done, installed, the backend database is installed, you need to create the local repositories. The first one we create here is AIO repo IDOC. So this is my main repository where I'll be working on. So the second one, the repository that I go and create is lookup, and the third local repository, or this is my profiler repository. So I create total 3 databases. One is for my IDOC jobs, second one is for my lookup jobs, and third one is for my profiler. And then once these 3 are done, so you see this one profiler, they're calling it as optional. So not mandatory. Then install data services. So data services is already available, so we can skip this one. So I highlighted that and mentioned that we can skip because we already have it. Then creation of a job server. So go to the server manager, and the job server starts with JS and the methodology and the repository. So I call it as JSIO repo, right? And then creation of secondary repository. So that is for the lookup local repository. So first create your local repository on the database that you created with IDOC name, then assign it to the job server, then create a second local repository for lookup and assign it to the job server, right? And then first go and log into your lookup repository. So data services 3.2 and go to your data services designer, select your lookup repository, local repository, and log into it one. And if you look at this downloaded content that we had, we have something called as ATLs, and here I have these ATLs, right? So one is my data store ATL, and then I have my lookup jobs ATL. So I need to import all these things, right? So first log into your lookup repository. So you created two local repositories. Remember, one is your IDOC repository and the second one is your lookup repository. So log into your lookup repository and you need to import all these things, right? Your file to SAP to file population, then SAP to application population delta, and SAP to application population init. So it gives you the entire things. When you download this, it gives you the .atl files, .txt files. You can download each and everything, right? So once you create all these things, put them in place, then you will log into your lookup repository and you will import these jobs. So how do you import? You go to your data services designer, and on the quick start page you have something called as import. So here I think there is a repository that is already set up. We've already installed this business content here. So if you look at this lookup tables, so this is from where I go and import. So I click on import and I go and pick those .atl files and import them into my data services. And once I import my data stores, I get all these data stores. So there's no need for you to even create a data store. You'll get all these data stores, and then you import your lookup jobs and all your lookup jobs will be imported, right? So just take you back to the document, right? So once you import this file to population, then file to application initial and file to application delta, you'll have everything ready in your system. SAP to file, SAP to application, initialize, and file to app. So all your jobs are available, and once you import all these things, then create a new project, BPDM IDOC, and then go and configure your data stores. So now these data stores, whatever you get, will not have the exact database names, right? So they'll have the dummy database names and all these things. Now you can go and configure your data stores to point to your sources or targets or stagings or lookup databases. So you can point them, configure your data stores, and also configure your SAP. And the first job that you need to run here is choose the advanced button and change the SAP ECC settings. In the data transfer method, use direct download if they should show. Before executing the job, look up SAP to file population delta. The transformation defines how you get the data from ECC server to data services. Click on OK. So this is where you look at the data transfer mechanisms. One is FTP or shared directory, then direct download, right? So you have a description about that here. So once you go and configure the data stores and point them to the right databases, then log into iDoc repository. So in this case, I created both of them in the same this one. So one I have my project and the second one is my iDocs. So once I log into this one and import my data store BPDM iDoc 1 and BPDM iDoc 2. So in the latest version it is from A to N and N to Z. So there are two categories. They are sorted in alphabetical order. So objects from A to N will be as a part of this first ATL, and then N to Z will be the part of the second ATL. So the lookup table creation is initialized by the job AIO lookup file to application population initial. So first you need to run this. Is used to create the lookup database structures and populate with the baseline values provided by SAP best practices. So if you look at this one, the baseline values are given in these documents. So if you look at activity type Excel, Notepad, so it has the legacy values, the target values, then the activity type, controlling area, valid to till which date it is valid, and then what is the global text, local text, and timestamp. So if you want to see it properly, you can put that in an Excel sheet. So legacy type, actual type, controlling area, valid till which date, and then activity type, global text, local text, and the timestamp. So this is your standard lookup structure. You will have your legacy value and then target value. So if they are same, they will maintain the same. If there are any changes, their changes are captured here. So based on these things, the lookup environment will be created. Alright, so hope I'm not confusing you here. So once we run this job, it will pick the data from those flat files and it will create the environment. So there are a couple of prerequisites that you need to ensure that before you go and run your lookup environment setup. So there will be for lookup underscore star dot files, which is nothing but your lookup files. So all these lookup files should be there. Point number one, we have it. Then default number range is another file. So we have it in place, and then lookup list.dat. So that is one file which will actually capture all the lookup files, and it will maintain the entire list. It's a .dat file. I think it's missing here, but yeah, we'll have a lookup list.dat file, and once everything is ready, then you can proceed to the BPDM iDoc local repository and open your job and right click on the job initial, populate initial, and execute this one. So once you execute this lookup job, it will go and create the backend lookup environment. So make sure at the time of execution you set these values, create allocation table as yes, and the path here is C:/migration or D